You're listening to Keeping Up with the Knights, a podcast for the faculty and staff at Steele High School, allowing them to connect outside of the classroom. Teacher, coach, mentor, and speaker Michael Herrera, a past District Teacher of the Year, will sit down with fellow teachers and bring their stories to life. Sit back, relax, and enjoy these stories as they unfold on this episode of Keeping Up with the Knights.
Today I had the pleasure of sitting down with Krisstian Langford, a math teacher of the last 12 years at Steele High School. Through our conversation, I learned that she has an exceptional way of connecting to her students through Motivational Mondays, TikTok Tuesdays, Wellness Wednesdays, Diversity Thursdays, and Funny Video Fridays. It was a great time and I hope you enjoy it too. Please welcome Krisstian Langford to Keeping Up with the Knights. So first and foremost, I would like to thank you, Krisstian Langford, for joining me on Keeping Up with the Knights. It's been a pleasure talking with a lot of different teachers across campus, but as I've said to all the other previous guests on the show, I just want to remind you the purpose behind this podcast. And for me, this podcast is to bring teachers together. Oftentimes we focus on relationships with our students and building the morale in our classrooms so that we can effectively teach our content, right? From administration, Jana does a great job, and previous principals have done a great job of building this staff here on this campus for the last 15 years that I've been here. But there's never really been something that brings our staff together other than faculty meetings, other than the in-service days when we're back on campus. So I feel like doing a podcast like this allows teachers like you to share your stories so that people can connect with you outside of the classroom that not normally would under normal circumstances. We're so used to hanging out with our own groups, with our own departments, that even when we have opportunities to connect with other people, we go to lunch with the same people, right? We're sitting at the same lunch table, if you will, of life. And it doesn't allow us to grow our network of teachers and kind of hear teachers' stories. So again, I'm sitting down with Krisstian Langford. Krisstian, thank you for joining this podcast. Are you excited?
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right. So the beginning of the podcast is I call bell ringers. So a lot of teachers always do some kind of warm up in their classroom. So we're going to warm up by getting to know each other. And I'm going to ask you 5 questions and then you'll follow up and do the same for me. All right. So question number 1, if you could go back and high five yourself for something that you did, what would that high five be for?
Let's say good one. Okay, I would go back and I would high five myself probably in high school. And it was just an accomplishment for running. So at a track meet, I didn't think I could run a sub 60 400. And then I did it and it made for a very successful district meet. So
very good. So you put your disbeliefs to shame, man.
Mm-hmm.
What I've heard one time before is that you have to doubt your doubts, right? Doubt your doubts. All right. Number 2, what's your go-to hobby? So you're not teaching, maybe it's summer break, maybe it's Christmas break. I don't know, right? You just got free time on your hands. What's your go-to hobby?
Well, I don't think eating is a hobby, but I usually
I guess.
Snack. So that's my go-to thing. And if I have the time, I'm always going to want to be outside in the heat, working out or just being active. So it's like working out or just outside with my daughter, her on her bike and us walking.
All right. Number 3. So if there was a genre of music that best describes you, right? Not a song, just like a genre of music that describes Krisstian Langford, what would that genre of music be?
R&B, definitely 90s R&B.
That's a great choice. Great choice. All right. Question number 4, if you could be trained, this is a good question. I like this question. If you could be trained by anyone in any profession, who would you want training you? So it doesn't have to be physical fitness trainer. No, I'm talking about someone to mold you, shape you, train you into doing something that you're either currently doing or that you wish you could do. Who would you want training you?
Ooh. always go physical.
That's okay. Go there.
This is the first person who comes to mind, and God bless her. I can't remember. She's CrossFit. She doesn't do it anymore, but she was always at the CrossFit games. Curly hair girl, African American, and Akawali. Oh, I can't remember how to say her name, but I love her and I love what she's about, and from her healthy lifestyle and just being at her age and still rocking a six pack. And she has a family, and she's just so positive. And I know it's on social media and you only put out like the good stuff, but it's just like her vibe is, I just love her energy. And of course I would love for her to train me so I can look like that.
Very good. All right. That's okay. All right. And then my last question for you is, if you were not a teacher, what profession would you be in?
Okay. Growing up, okay, for one, I wanted to be in the Olympics, but I mean, you got to have it, and I didn't have it. That was always like my thing. And then my second thing is I wanted to be a supermodel. But my dad shut that one down because he wasn't trying to hear that at all. And then my other one was to join the military, but my dad also shot that down. He didn't want me to go into the military. So those are my.
All right.
Here I am. I'm a teacher now.
Maybe in the future you can combine the two, right? You can be a military supermodel.
Yeah.
All right, your turn. Shoot away. What are your 5 questions for me?
All right. So my first question for you is, what's the last song that you sang to?
So it's crazy. So like doing this podcast, and I also do a basketball podcast. In my radio right now, like I am listening to podcast after podcast, and it's really weird because I thought about that this morning. Like I don't listen to music very much anymore. Like I'm listening to podcasts and I'm making notes and coming up with questions and ideas and concepts. And I'm just trying to like grow my podcast brain, if you will, like just to kind of hear and experience and then like mimic what other people are doing. So the last song I sang, you know what? Okay, I can't. Here's what it is. You have children and so do I, right? So, oh my God, right now in my head, I go to bed singing the 50 States of America song. Mm-hmm. I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm singing the 50 states. And this morning I woke up singing the 50 states. So there you go. I sang the 50 states song this morning.
The last jam. Okay. Yeah. Should pineapple go on pizza?
No. I can't, like, I love mixing foods with, you know, like let's say steak and mashed potatoes and like broccoli. Like I don't care if all my foods touch and like it's all going down the same pipe, so I don't care. But to me, fruit on pizza, like I'm not hating on it. Like if it's the only piece and someone offers it to me, I mean I'm gonna eat it, but I ain't.
What about sweet cheese?
No, I mean I'm putting jalapenos and pepperoni and mushrooms on my pizza.
Okay. You go to the zoo. What's your favorite animal to see at the zoo?
Cheetah.
A cheetah?
That was always my favorite animal as a kid. Like that was always the animal that I drew. Like just cheetah. And being a runner, and you're a runner, like for me, I love the speed, the tenacity, the strength. So cheetah's always been my favorite animal.
All right. Would you eat a cockroach for $1,000?
Oh, hands down, piece of cake. Yeah, I mean, I'd hate it, but for $1,000, now you say $10, heck no, throw that thing away. Like I don't want it. Okay. But for $1,000, I can think of a lot of things that I would do with that money.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was trying to figure out, should I up the amount? Like, okay, because I feel I would do it for $1,000 also.
I think that was a good mark. Like even $100, I might not. Mm-mm. But $1,000, I'm good.
And my last question is, what's your movie theater snack? What do you grab before you go watch a movie?
So that's crazy. So like, I love going to see movies, but having kids, it makes it a little bit more difficult. And especially with COVID, we don't really go to see movies, but I'm not a snack taker. Like I'm boring. Like my wife, she's got to have the big old bucket of like the endless popcorn with the butter and the salt. And like, she'll sit there and munch on that the whole movie. Right. But growing up as a kid, it's funny because my mom would take her purse and she would have like snacks like you wouldn't even imagine, right? I mean, the purse is like falling off of her shoulder and like everybody knows in the movie theater what she has, right? And so we would go to like Albertsons or H-E-B, I guess back then it was Albertsons or Kroger. and we would go down the candy aisle and you got to go pick your candy, right, that she would stuff into her purse. So it was typically Skittles or Starburst. But nowadays, man, I don't take anything. I know it sounds boring.
Well, that was my 5.
All right. Well, thank you again. So I just want to start. So we're kind of warmed up now. And I always like to ask this first question just because I think even though you and I know each other, you know, I don't know your childhood story. I don't know where you grew up. So let's just start there and let us know like where you grew up. Talk about your childhood a little bit. Let's keep it to like the high school area, right? So like anywhere between being a kid and growing up and going to high school. What was your childhood life like?
I'm a military brat, so I'd probably say, I don't know, like 2/3 of my schooling was overseas. I was in Iceland for 4 years, so that's
Wow.
where I started school. And then after that, we ended up in Spain. So we were stationed at Rota, Spain for 3 years, and then we came to San Antonio. And so both my parents are now retired Navy. During my childhood, I loved moving around. I loved being able to travel, meet different people. But it was different seeing and being friends with everyone overseas and then coming to the US. And then it's just like, I don't know, to me, it's like everything seems so cliquish compared to how it was for military life. Then I guess the next part, like I guess the middle school years, my mother was stationed on a ship for 3 years. And so it was just me and my dad. He had retired. And so my aunt stayed with us. And then after that, she retired and then she came to live with us. And then we moved to the northeast side, San Antonio, and I went to James Madison High School.
I don't know if I knew that. I knew the military part. I knew that you traveled around. Did not know that you lived in Iceland. So from Iceland to Spain to the United States, that's got to definitely help you as a teacher build those relationships with students that have to go through that here.
Oh, definitely. From the deployment and just understanding, like you miss your parent and they come back. And my mother had just had my sister, and within months, that's when she had to start her tour at sea for 3 years. And she only came to visit probably, I think it was like every 4 or 5 months. And so then when these kids are dealing with their parents being deployed, it's like I can relate and share my story and listen to them.
Excellent. So just random. So when did you graduate Madison?
2004.
Okay. All right. So we probably, I mean, I grew up right there too. I almost went to Madison based on the street. You know where Leonhardt is in Nacogdoches?
No, Nacogdoches. I don't know. Leon, I don't know.
Leonhardt's like the street right before you get to like the Midnight Rodeo area where
Yes.
Thousand Oaks. So like that's where I grew up. So that street divided. If you lived on one side, you went to Mac, and if you lived on the other side, you went to Madison. But I used to run from my house all the way up to Madison. It's about 3 miles. And then I would go play basketball all day, and then I would go home. So our paths may have crossed at some point in our young life. But all right, so you talked about like you're growing up, you're military, you kind of moved around, and then obviously you went off to college. So let's talk about like where you went. Share some experiences that you have like that have stood with you over the years, right? Like, and they can be academically, they can be socially, they can be like these aha epiphany moments. But just talk a little bit about college and that experience for you.
Okay, I went to Texas State, San Marcos. Loved it. Oh my goodness. A lot of growing up happened during that time. You go through your ups and downs, and it's like I'm far enough away from my parents, but then it's like they're right there just in case I need them. I joined a sorority, so Zeta Phi Beta, and through that group of women, we were able to just help the community, did more community service with that sorority. But then it also helped me to become a teacher because they also are affiliated with a lot of youth groups, and Finer Womanhood is one of their principles. And so it was developing girls into women. And with that, I think that's one thing that has stuck with me, is just to help females understand like that they're powerful. You can dress a certain way, you can be educated, you can be yourself, and you can be successful. And it's just helping young girls understand their power And I think from college, being a part of that organization, and then also meeting Nate, of course, met him at Texas State, and he's a part of Omega Psi Phi. And so then they had their principals, and just being a part of that group and then helping the community, it really made me a part of Texas State. I feel like instead of just being a student, being a part of all the different organizations, that organization, and I don't know, Texas State just helped me grow up. I don't know. I don't know what else to really add to that, but
it's important for, and I know teachers, like we're all, we're already professionals and we're educators and we're working, but it's so important because in case we have some students or anybody else that end up listening to this podcast, like I always tell students all the time in high school, even, like, be active, get involved, join clubs, join as many things as you possibly can, because it helps the introverted become a little extrovert, right? It helps them make connections and friends and networking. And in college, sometimes, like I just had a conversation yesterday with a student. I was like, listen, man, like, I know you want to stay close for college, just like you did, right? Close enough to where you can come home. But man, if there's, like, you don't get these college years back, and it's the time of your life. Like college, you're going to have the time of your life. The memories are going to last forever. And you can always come back home. But you're old enough to leave the nest, right? And go meet new people, join new clubs. A lot of people don't know this about me, but I was in a fraternity. And, although people stereotype fraternal lifehood, it's a stereotype. And they're not all like that. And, I was never forced to drink. I was never forced to do any of that kind of stuff. But that, in my freshman year in college, I was 1998, I began mentoring kids that needed someone in their life, and I had to go once a week because of my fraternity. Right? And it wasn't, I mean, it's I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, it's Pi Kappa Alpha, right? Like, I was in that fraternity, but yet they instilled in me how important it is for community service and to reach out. And so I think that was like maybe the early birth of this idea and this concept of mentoring kids. And that's kind of where I get it from. And I really enjoyed that. And going into the schools and talking with teachers at the time, I could tell you this, that I had no desire to be a teacher. It probably wasn't even 1% on the radar. I always wanted to be a physician in the NBA. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be an NBA physician. So I was going to school with the idea of going to medical school. But I look back now since you said that, and it really kind of reminds me how important it was for me to be in a fraternity and how that has in some way shaped me as a teacher. So good point. So let's talk about, so you went to college, talk about your journey now in becoming a teacher. So, like, what stops along the way have taken you before you arrived here at Steele High School? Like, just your student teaching, like when did that happen for you that you realized that you wanted to be a teacher?
So it started a long time ago. I had all those other ideas of different routes of things I wanted to do, but I also knew my father, and I knew I could try all that stuff, but I already knew no. So when I was younger, my baby dolls, I would sit them up and I would play school all the time. And so there was something about, like, helping, and I would help my little dolls. Then it kind of grew, it developed. And then in high school, actually, I had a teacher, Miss Tripp, and she was my pre-cal teacher. And there was something about the way that she made, I don't want to say made math fun, but I knew I wanted to teach. I wasn't sure what subject, but by having her show that she cared, and she kind of, I don't know how she did it, she took the anxiety away from the math. And I noticed that in her classroom. I noticed how kids loved coming to her tutoring. They would stop by her class out of their way if they're just at school early. And I love the relationships she had with her students in a subject that most people hated. And I'm like, I want to do that, because she was the only teacher that didn't make me fear math. And I'm like, oh, I get it. If I take the anxiety away, I can really focus on what I'm doing. And so then getting to Texas State, it's like, now I know I want to be a teacher. I wanted to teach math, but then I was unsure about what grade. And so I started off taking, like, the elementary, the education major, and it wasn't specific to math. And by doing that, I just could not wrap my head around all the fluff. And I was sitting there and I'm like, what are y'all talking about? Like, this isn't going to work. Or I didn't agree with the classes I was paying for. So I quickly changed my major and I went down the route of just being a math major. And that's what I needed. I needed just to be straight to the point with the math. And that's when it was like, okay, I'm enjoying this. There's no fluff. I can get to the point. And so I said, I'm going to be a high school math teacher. My coach, Coach Cross, she just retired last year from Madison High School. She's the reason I wanted to get into coaching. And then when I started off, I wasn't doing it because math took up a lot of my time. But then slowly, it's like there's something missing. And that was the only other checkbox from my goals. And it's like, let me try it. And then I'm loving it.
So Steele is your only stop?
Yes. I did student teaching. I did my block at San Marcos High School, and then I student taught at Wallace Middle School in Hayes, and then that's where I knew I wasn't doing middle school. That was Lord.
Yes,
so, no.
Agreed. Yeah, well, that's awesome. So Steele is your only stop, but I tell you what, when you said that, like all the feels started coming back. Like I was like, man, let me think about that. So it for me was a math teacher too. Mr. Holt was my geometry teacher. I loved math. Honestly, another little fact here that you would not know. If I were to teach anything other than what I do teach here, it would be math, but I couldn't teach math now because it's like, I don't remember all that stuff. Like, there's no way. I know, but no, seriously, like, I'm a nerd at heart. So like academics for me growing up as a kid was very difficult. Even since my parents got divorced at an early age, I was a rebellious kid. I was the bad kid. I do public speaking now. And when I go talk, I always talk about my academic story, and how I was the kid that was going to fail. I was the kid, and I have a twin sister. And it was that moment when I met with the principal, and she was like, Michael, if you don't get your act together, your sister's going to move on and you're going to be held back, and y'all are twins.
Wow.
It was a pivotal moment in my life and that's why I feel like, all teachers have a story to tell. Right. And for me, academics after that, what became so easy, and I hate to say, no, I can't say that. That's a lie. I did everything I could to make academics easy, but it came very difficult for me. My reading comprehension level was awful, and I hated reading, and now I love reading. But my eyes were opened by teachers like you mentioned, right, that just took the anxiety away. And so Mr. Holt, for me as a geometry teacher, I don't think I ever made below maybe like a 98 in math. Like it was just, I don't care what math I took, it was a piece of cake. But it's interesting that you say that, because you think about how difficult some of our courses are here on campus, right? But even though the students may not like how hard the class is, they can still appreciate the teacher. But it's the teacher who has difficult content who makes it difficult to learn that the students turn the other way to. And so I think it's real key what you said there, is that a teacher can take away anxiety from a student. So I want to talk about, it's a good segue into my next question, and we're going to come back to this in just a second. So this is a question that I feel like all teachers need to answer for themselves. And it's one of the things that I typically have when I go do public speaking. I usually ask people to write this down, because some people have it in their heads and it's a thought. But to me, until it's on paper, like you've got to give something ground. You got to put your thoughts on paper. I always use this expression. If the disciples didn't write down what Jesus said, we wouldn't have the Bible. Like, think about how important it is to write things down, right? So I don't know about you, but I know I do. Can you tell me, why do you teach?
I teach. It's not for the math. It's kind of like,
it's not.
Math got me through the door to the school where I can help kids that are unheard or they have problems at home, and just to help them with life. So I have a lot of moments in my classroom that we put the math on hold because I can sense or I can see, there's something going on with this student, or there's something we need to talk about this. And it's for them to open up and just understand kind of like how to get through life, how to make the best choices. And I just understand a lot of kids don't get that at home. And so I feel like part of my job, I'm not a counselor, but it's like I can be real with them. And so it's like when you're explaining, like whenever you were in school, you struggled, and it's for me to share that, especially with the mental health things that are going on. And it's like, y'all can make it. Y'all can do this. Life will be hard, but you can find a coping skill to get through it. And so I don't want school to be their anxiety because there's enough things they have to worry about. And so I don't want them to come into my math classroom thinking, I hate math, I can't do this. I want them to walk through the door and understand, like, oh, this is a teacher that can help me with life. They're going to teach me math, but I'm also going to understand that they don't get it all. If they show me that they're trying, because they have to try in life, you can't give up. So the life skill is, if you don't give up on math, you will pass, you will be successful if you're trying. Just like you don't give up on life, you will be successful, but you can't stop. And so my difference I'm trying to make is to get these kids to just keep going in life, because I don't know what they're getting at home. And so I see them more than their parents a lot of times. And so I just want to be there for them, type of a thing. It's like I'm a mom. I have the opportunity to be a mother, but it's like, y'all are my kids too. And so if you need someone to talk to, I'm here, and we can get through this thing called school just so you can get to life. So this is just a passage. We all have to get through this. And if you don't give up, I mean, bam, start your life. So it's kind of, I guess my main thing right now, it's changed over time, but my main thing, my focus now is the mental health of these kids, and just literally talking them off a cliff. So
it's so important that, again, this is why, like, when you first started talking, like, I got the goosebumps, right? Like, that's what education's about. And I sarcastically said, when you said it's not about math, and I was like, what? Like, it's supposed to be, right? Like, that's what your job is. Your job title is math teacher. And you said that you're not a counselor, but, I'm not going scripture on you here, but like, that's what a teacher is, right? Like, a teacher wears all the hats. You mentioned counselor. You mentioned mother. Like, in some people, and I'll tell you this, man, this is a true story. When I first started teaching here, it was my first year teaching, quote unquote, you're not here to be their friends. Make sure that you are the authoritative figure. And so, like, as a first year teacher, hearing that, and I went through alternative certification, I was like, man, okay, I need to, like, what am I about to get into? I mean, I've never taught. I didn't do any student teaching. Like, I went through alternative certification, and it just like, okay. Man, it didn't last very long. I was like, what? No.
It's not you.
No,
You know
that's not
person.
me. Like, this is not, that's not me. Like, and I understand, like, don't get me wrong. Like, we're not here to be their friends. We're here to be their mentor. Right. But there's a fine line, and I get that. But what is a friend? Right. We can go through the definition of a friend, right? Just someone who's there for someone else. So yeah, I'm going to be their friend. I'm going to be their mentor. Right. But it's so important for me that people understand that content. This is my opinion. This is not a fact. This is my opinion. But over doing this podcast now for 6 or 7 episodes now, all teachers that I've interviewed so far essentially say that their content comes after the connections with the kids.
Oh, yeah.
Somewhere along the line, though, this is not taught to us. It's just innate in us. It is innate in us. That's why people like you and people like me have relationships with kids that go beyond the classroom. That's why we go watch them at a football game. We go watch them at their volleyball game, right? Or they send us the thank you cards. And so my challenge to people is we have to take a step back and realize that until that foundation is built on relationships and trust, that all that anxiety in the math class is going to live there. And it's going to live there all year. And you have an opportunity at the beginning of the classroom year to squash that anxiety by revealing a little bit about yourself, talking about your struggles, talking about your own anxieties that you have. And it just makes it real, and it makes us transparent, but ultimately it makes us human, right? It just makes us human. I am a teacher. I am in charge of this classroom. You're the students, and I know it's your job to learn, but we're all in this together. And so I was listening to a podcast, and it was like one of those aha moments that we are, and again, I'm saying this without, hopefully people take this out of context. We are here to teach these kids to be masters of life, not masters of content, because they're going to choose what content they want to be a master of. Because some kids are going to hate math, but they're still going to do really good for you, but they don't really care to master it. They don't care. Like, they don't care.
Problem solving.
Yes.
Be good problem solvers. There's not just one way to solve the problem, which was hard for me going through math classes, and it was taught the steps, blah, 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 blah. But then when I have a kid turn in a paper, they got the right answer. They showed their work, but it wasn't the way I taught them. But they got to the solution. That's all I want them to do. It's not going to be cookie cutter. If they found a way to think through the process, that's showing me that they're able to continue to think through their life processes, find a way to work it out.
Right. Yep. Problem solvers and critical thinkers. That's what we're chasing, right? That's what they're going to need after they graduate and they leave these halls. All right. So let's change gears just a little bit. So who is a teacher that you will always remember, and what about them made them so special? So as you're kind of thinking about that, here's where that question came from. Again, I write things down on paper. And so I've got my own bucket list. And on my bucket list that I drew out and I wrote on it, and it says, I want to be a teacher that a student will always remember. And what I mean by that is I want to be the one teacher that if you were to ask them, like, who was that teacher in your life, blah, 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 oh, it was Coach Herrera, right? Mm-hmm. So for you, who is that teacher throughout all of your academic career that you will always remember, and what about them made them so special?
I'm probably going to have to, she was a coach though.
That's okay.
So it has to be Coach Cross. Because on Facebook, we still talk to this day. And I worked hard for my parents, but she was able to cause me to not want to disrespect her, not let her down. I wanted to have the high grades. I wanted to have the highest grade on the track cross country team. She believed in me. She pushed me. Talk about tough love, but to have somebody just like in your face, and they're in your face because they know you can do better. And the fact that she emotionally, she could pull my strings, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I upset her. She knows that was BS. And it's just like having that person at school that checks you, but she built up the rapport so she could do that. So I don't know, it's like if you have a teacher who has that relationship with his or her classroom, the discipline issues will fall. You're not going to have the disrespect because they're going to look at you and they're not going to want to hurt you. They're not going to want to treat you any kind of way. They're going to want to follow your rules. And for 4 years, seeing the same coach who was a science teacher, who I can also go to for science, she wasn't my teacher, but just to have that person throughout all my years. And excuse me, I just knew like if I got in trouble in a teacher's class, it was going to go back to her. And it was just like, she's not my mom, but why do I feel this way? Like, I don't want to disappoint her. So I'd say Coach Cross.
You know, I like that you said that. And that's why when you said coach, I'm like, go there. I mean, because it's, again, the purpose behind this podcast for our faculty and staff is to know that you're not alone. Like we are truly here for each other. People always ask me, like, what makes Steele so special? We're always eager to help each other. You need something, let's share it. Like it's never been about us as individuals. It's always been us about a staff. And after 15 years now, like it's never changed. We've been through 3 principals. We've been through, departments that have been shifted around and teachers teaching new things or teachers that have left. But to me, the culture here has kind of, in my opinion, and I don't know if anybody believes differently, but it's a good culture here. It's a great place to be. But I think oftentimes, even as a staff, and I hope people are listening to this, like there's a separation or divide between coaches and teachers. No, we're in this together. We're in this together. So if you're having a problem in your classroom with my athlete or another athlete, lean on your coaches. But how are you going to lean on your coaches if you don't know that kid's even playing basketball? That stems from the relationship piece. Get to know your kids. What are your kids involved in? Because I don't care if it's band, if it's color guard, if it's cheer, if it's dance, it doesn't matter. You have to know what interests your kids have so that you can hold them. And here's the key word that I'm hearing from you is the accountability piece, right? holding kids accountable for their actions. Kids always love a classroom where there's like no restrictions. They can do whatever the heck they want to. They can be on their phones. They can do this. They can do that for one reason. But on the flip side, that same kid really appreciates it when a teacher has structure, right? Manages their classroom, knows what the expectations are, and they abide by them. So how do you take a student who can act up in one class, right?
Yeah.
And then in your class doesn't do anything?
Yeah, it's like, I don't have those issues from him. That's odd. He's
Right?
not in my class.
Yes. And that's the thing that I want to address with, this podcast is when you build those relationships and those connections with the kids first, they're probably not going to be doing that. But even if you do build those relationships and connections with the kids are still kids. Don't beat yourself over the head because you can't figure out how to reach Johnny. Go to all the other teachers. And that's why I like listening to your story. Okay, you're military. Hey, Krisstian, hey, can you do me a favor? Like, I've got this kid in my classroom. He's military. This is the 4th place he's been to in 3 years. I know I can reach out to you now because of your story, right? And that's the purpose of this, is if we can share our stories, we can lean on each other when, and I know we know each other, but let's play here like I didn't know you. Through this podcast, I know Krisstian Langford now. I know what she stands for. I know who she is. I know that she went to Texas State. She was military. She wanted to become a teacher. I might have that one kid whose story sounds like yours that I can go make the connection with you. So in the end, if we can build connections with ourselves as staffs, then we can build our connections with our kids through each other. We're not in this alone. We're here to be in this together. So, all right. So now let's talk about you as a teacher, right? You're in the role. You're at Steele High School. You've been here for how many years now?
This is 12.
Okay, so you're on year 12, and in those 12 years, you probably have some pivotal moment, some awesome story, some empowering, uplifting story with a student. And obviously, without mentioning the child's name, I want you to share a story or a pivotal moment in your educational career that you'll never forget. Like it's that impactful moment. Go ahead and share away.
So there's a couple. I had a student. I don't know which one I want to talk about.
Well, you got to choose one.
Yes.
Hey, just remember, they're both impactful and they're both powerful, right?
Yes. I just talk about a recent one. I had a kid who transferred and came from out of state. Had a, I don't want to say a drawl, it's a Texas thing, but you can just, in his speech, he's from Florida, but you can listen to him and the kids are like, he sounds different. He always got the attention in class, but it was more of like, it's like, I felt the kids were like making fun of him type of a thing, but he held his own in the classroom. And then we sat back and we just talked about the differences this student has compared to everyone else. And there's nothing wrong with that. He thinks y'all are crazy because y'all sound Texan and he's from Florida. And he's like, y'all say this stuff funny, blah, 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 blah. In this class, we ended up making this awesome relationship where it ended up turning to what's wrong with this kid, to tell me more about where you're from. And then what I found that was interesting about this kid and what I need to get through a lot of our athletes' head is you don't only have to be an athlete to be successful. And this kid felt that he had to be an NFL player to be successful. And I had to talk to him and explain to him that, look, I broke down the percentages. I put it on the board, how many people play ball in college, and then how many are successful, how many years you play in the NFL, how much money you have. And I had to get through to him that you have to have an education. And he would tell me, no, I'm just going to play NFL. I don't need this. And it was hilarious, just as the banter, us going back and forth, talking about his grades and I don't need this. And he would get so frustrated. He would get so angry. He would cuss. But I never wrote this kid up. And I don't know if it was because we would have our come to Jesus moments in the hallway. And I'm like, look, dude, what are you doing? You're upset. come on. You can't be talking like this in class, yada, yada, yada. And we would constantly do that. And he would get tired of me. But then I noticed a difference in him when I would take him outside, he would apologize first because he knew. It wasn't me like getting after him. He would walk outside and he's like, man. And then as soon as I would close the door from the other students, then he would be like, Miss, I know I was wrong. I'm sorry. I'm trying. And so then the next thing we worked on is, I don't know what is up with him, but he would fly F-bombs all the time. And I'm like, you can't say that. But then he started catching it. And then it became, he would say half the word, but just those little changes. The next thing was I held him after, or asked the coaches if he can come to my room for tutoring. And when he started making good grades, it was amazing to see this kid just turning around, excited to make my boards like, man, I just got an A on the quiz. Y'all ain't on there, and just talking about the other kids. And then they're like, what? He passed the quiz? And so to see the change, it was like working on him. And he's one student now. It's like the respect that I feel he has for me and I have for him, and seeing him in the hallway, and he has different phrases that he would say from Florida, and I actually wrote them on the board, and he would explain what it meant so the other kids could start saying his phrases, and just bringing everyone together because it was such a big difference. Like they were like, Miss, do you even know what he's saying? I was like, nope, but hey, can you translate that? What does that mean? Florida boy is what he would call himself, Florida boy. And so just working on kids just to get them to understand you have options. But there's a lot of athletes. It's just I try and tell them, I know what you want to do, but sports, you got to have a backup. But this kid was just set on, I'm going to play ball. I don't need education. And just getting them to understand that you're not going to play in college if you don't have the GPA. Like they're not going to take, I don't care how talented you are. But I don't know. He was a fun one to kind of to change and to see the change happen.
And I like what you said there, because you're going back to what you said earlier about the accountability piece. You're holding him, you're putting him in check, right? You took him outside to talk to him, and he probably, if I were to guess right, in the beginning probably did not admit his faults.
No.
Right? So, and that's what I want to talk about is I was talking to Mr. Cheeves on a previous episode, and that's what he talked about. He talked about like he feels successful as a teacher when, he sees even the slightest amount of growth with a student. Mm-hmm. And for you, like that growth with this kid had nothing to do with math. It did, but it didn't. Like it had to do with modeling behavior, right? Those life lessons, mastering life. It's not okay to just curse when you're inside a public area in a classroom. What you do in your house or in your bedroom, or what you do on the phone, that's one thing. But that simple lesson for him, he started holding himself accountable for his actions, which led to holding himself accountable for his academic decisions, which then led to his own personal academic growth. Now you take that one kid, and again, I'm doing color commentary on your story here. You take that one student that you were able to affect, who felt empowered now academically, like, I got this, man. Like, I feel good about myself. Then you've got the students around him saying, what? Wait a minute. Like, yes. Like he just did that. So what does that do for the rest of your students? It's going to raise their game, right? So when you take a kid, and again, I don't know the kid, and it doesn't matter for the story here, but I'm just going to like go on with this here. If you take a kid in Steele High School, like if I hope and pray that you're listening to this, because that's my message here is, when you take a student who's struggling in your class, that fails every quiz, that fails every test, that fails every assignment, get to the why. Why is this kid doing that? Like, just hold him or her accountable for something that may not have to do with your class, that may have to do with life. And when you share that with that kid, and when you empower that kid, and when you uplift that kid, and when you have that kid's back, it can affect the academic progress that you're not getting in your classroom. And so you take that kid who has a 50, but now they have a 60. Well, by guidelines, they're still a failure academically, but no, they're not. Like, they went from a 50 to a 60. That is growth. Yes. You have to reinforce that growth. You have to let that child know and give them feedback what a major change. Like, hey, what happened, man? I just noticed that you're getting like 60 and 65s on your stuff now. That's awesome. Like, you have to celebrate that, because now in order to take them from a 50 to a 90, it's not going to happen. But you can take them from a 60 to a 72. And from a 72 now, Krisstian, when that student is now in someone else's math class next year, that 72 kid is now striving to get an 80. But see, I think sometimes we get mixed up in this academic success life of the Harvards and the Yales, and we have to be the valedictorian to be academically successful. No. And in my class in teaching healthcare, I always tell my kids, guys, I want you to remember that all doctors passed a test, but not all doctors made 100.
Yeah.
Like, there are some doctors out there that are fantastic at their job, and I'm making this up here, but like they passed their test with an 80. So like,
I passed my math certification test, but it sure wasn't a super high score. I just passed it, and I share that with them. I was not an honors math kid. And so these kids are just like, oh my gosh, yeah, but it comes so easy. I was like, I took all regular courses, guys. I was in these classes. I didn't take any honors. And the other thing with this kid, the F-bombs, the discipline, it's just, I think some teachers need to understand everything doesn't warrant a referral.
thank you.
Because he would have been in ISS every day. He would have been out of my class, but it just takes talks, and every kid has a different background. And so then whenever you are a teacher, you have your background, and you know how you grew up and how you were raised. But this kid had a story, and he's holding on, and his family chose to separate him and bring him here for a different life. And he's trying, but we have to chisel all that other stuff away. And if you just slap a referral on him, he's not gonna, that's not teaching him, like you said, you don't just say everything you want. But before, that's how he rolled. Like that's how he would talk to people. And so it's that adjustment that we have to help the kids to adjust, to understand the norms, the social norms, because if they don't have it, it's just, to me, not fair to always send them to the office, to always write them up. It's not teaching them anything. They're not in ISS. They're not getting sat down and being like, okay, well, you're here because no. So I have to do that. So
I'm so glad that you said that, because my short-term memory is absolutely awful. But that was my second point that I was going to bring up that you talked about, is not writing that referral. Like what's the referral for? Like what that kid that you write the referral for cursing in your classroom, right? Okay, it's an offense, yes. Do you think that when they go to ISS, they're going to come back a renewed person?
Well, they're going to be ticked off you wrote them up.
Yes, like that referral is not going to help you in your classroom.
No.
And so my thing is ATM, through these podcasts, through hearing teacher stories, and I love to talk here, but I always like to give things that people can take back. And I just use a quick expression called ATM. And ATM stands for always teachable moments. Mm-hmm. Well, okay, let's talk about an ATM. Why do you go to an ATM? You go to an ATM to either deposit or withdraw, right? You cannot withdraw something from a kid unless you've made deposits with the kid. Mm-hmm. So all you're doing now is you're withdrawing him. Like he's gone or she's gone, right? You've mm-hmm. made no deposit. So by you talking and taking a minute out of your time to step outside and have a conversation with this kid in the hallway, that's your deposit. Like you're making deposits, right? So that when you have to hold him accountable and hold him in check and in line in your classroom, you can make those withdrawals, yeah. Right? So, always teachable moments and everything. So very good. Thank you for sharing that story. All right. So do you think that relationships, and we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but I'll just kind of ask you, do you think that relationships should be at the center of teaching? If so, and here's kind of where I want you to go with this is, if so, how do you specifically keep relationships at the center of teaching in your classroom? Like what are some of the things that you do to build those relationships in your own classroom?
Usually at the first week, like the whole first week, we play, I try not to make them too cheesy, but it's the whole getting to know you, but I do it in a way where it's like the marshmallow structure challenge where I just give them a bag and, you tell them go. Y'all build stuff, because they need to have a relationship with each other and then with me. I make sure that I share, and I know some teachers don't want to share their personal life, but I do share. I let them know if I'm having a bad day. Not afraid of letting them know, like, okay, guys, today this is going on. If y'all can you're going to do your notes. If y'all can keep it down today. Like, I make sure to share so they know you can have emotions and you can have bad days. The other thing I do is every day of the week, I have different videos I show. So I don't do warm-ups like math warm-ups, but our warm-ups are videos. So like on Monday, I do Motivational Monday. So I have a video, we talk about it, I show the video, and then we have a discussion about it, then we hit the math. Tuesday, I changed it. So this year it's TikTok Tuesday. And I put myself out there, but the kids are sending me TikToks they want me to duet or things like that. And they can kind of see my personality and be like, oh my gosh, she's so cheesy, corny. And they can laugh at me. That's fine. And then on Wednesdays, I do Wellness Wednesday, and it's my chance to spread the word about mental health. And I show video clips, and then we talk about it. We talk about what they can do. And if they don't want to come to a counselor, at least they're getting little pointers from my math class. They didn't think they would do. Then on Thursday, I do Diversity Thursday, which is what I started this year. And I'm sharing about different cultures. Just so we can be united. And I also give them a chance to share out about just insights, things they feel. I know last year I kind of did this, but we talked about just black hair, and just girls were just like, oh my gosh, I didn't like my hair. And then other a Hispanic girl, a white girl is like, oh my gosh, but I love your hair. I love your hair when you wear it like that. And it's just an uplifting thing that we do. Hispanic culture. And I just make sure different days, I just put little videos up so we can know about each other. And then on Friday, I do Funny Friday, and it's a chance for them to share videos with me that they think are funny and appropriate. And then I share them out. But that's kind of us breaking the ice every single day, getting them talking. If they don't want to talk about math, at least I can hear from them through that avenue. And then my usual math kids I will hear from. But then they also know they have things in common with each other from the conversations at the beginning of the class. So then they can do group work.
I love it. I love how you just shared that through non-content oriented stuff, you're still able to reach your kids before your content, and that just reinforces this idea that relationships are at the center of education, and that you do something every day. And so for the person hearing you and talking about your idea that you do with your class, right? This is what education is all about. It's all about sharing your ideas. So if you're listening and you hear, Krisstian talk about what she's doing on Motivational Monday and TikTok Tuesday, and her mental health and all this kind of stuff that she does in her classroom. So my question to you is, how much time does that take you each day?
Not at all. I'm just I have my smart board. I'll go look up the video. I already know the set days, especially now I'm doing my little Bitmoji classroom. So on the board, I just change it. Once you do it 1 year, I just save my videos and I reuse them. But on Remind, I just open it up to the students and I say, if you have a good motivational video, just send it to me, and I use their videos if they send in. Especially the Funny Friday, or right now, of course, they want to laugh at me. So they're going to send me a whole bunch of TikToks that they want me to learn dances for. But it's conversation and they enjoy it. But it doesn't take long at all. You're not making the video. You're finding the video someone already made.
Yeah. And so I don't know if you remember this, not this last year, but the year before that and the year before that, I was doing Motivational Mondays. Do you remember that? On Steele campus?
Yes.
On Steele campus.
And I was taking some of it was perfect.
So my idea behind that, and that's kind of where all this stuff comes from, right? Trust me, I'm not this radio talk show host dude that wants to go out and change my career and become something different. No, I'm doing this because I feel like as teachers, we need to hear from other teachers. We need to hear their stories. We need to hear what they're doing in their classroom. And we need to build this community of people that are willing to help each other. And so for me, 2 years ago, I was like, you know what, man, Monday needs to be a day that people look forward to Friday and they hate Monday.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of the beast, right? But it's I don't know. I feel like I'm weird here because I love coming to work. I love coming to school. I know that this is my calling to be in education, and I don't look at it as work. I look at it as it's enjoyment to come into my classroom and to be around kids and to be around teachers that for the most part share the same passion, right? So I just wanted to do something on Mondays because just like what you're doing with kids, this is what needs to be done with us as a staff. And think about this with COVID right now, like we're so into a little bit of a routine right now where we walk into school with our mask, possibly head down. Someone may say, good morning. Hey, how are you? Right. And you walk the same path up the same stairs to your classroom. You sit down, you take your mask off, and you're in that chair the rest of the day. It's, in a way, it's like, I hate it. Like sometimes I just have to get out of my seat and go walk around and say hi to people because I feel like I'm in a jail cell. Like there's no kids in here. I'm in my room. The door's closed. My mask is off. Like I don't like this feeling. So to uplift people on Mondays, right, is they needed to hear a message, and it gets lost on Steele campus, right? Like people just like, I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to read it. So, and I didn't know who was listening. I didn't know who was watching. I didn't know who was saying like, why is Herrera sending out this motivation on Monday, like delete or, whatever, right? But there were probably a few people that paid attention, that watched and looked forward to it. So this is just one of those another ideas of having this podcast is to, all right, well now you can listen to this podcast on your way to work. You can hear about Krisstian Langford's story, and just hopefully give some kind of insight into who we are as a staff. But all right, let's kind of wind things down here and wrap things up. But if you could, this is your last question. If you could thank any teacher on campus here at Steele High School, who would that teacher be and why?
I'm going to say this guy, Mr. Ellis is amazing. And he kind of helped me to understand that I don't have to be rigid. And he's showing me like the fun you can have. Like he comes to work, he has fun, he is hilarious, and the kids, they love him. And so I hear about his stories, like he'll put stuff on Facebook and like the fact that I genuinely laugh out loud. Like you can put LOL and stuff, but it's like I laugh out loud from his stories and the things that happen in his classroom. And some people might think, oh, you didn't go too far, but it's like the jokes and the conversations he has, he doesn't shut down. He goes with it. It's a laughable moment. The kids are still learning, but it just showed me like in my class, I can build that type of time in my classroom. And math it builds. So the teachers who teach the next level, I just hope they know I am still teaching math. The kids are going to be prepared, but I'm not going bell to bell because we are going to have fun. I'm going to hear that joke a kid said, and I'm going to laugh. I'm not going to be like, dude, like, get out of here. Like, there are certain moments when you can have a joke and you can bring it back to the topic if someone says something. But I just enjoy the fact that he has like so many positive vibes in a time right now that it just seems like everything's so down in the dump. And just, I don't know, his presence. I'm like, I am so happy for any student that has this guy as a teacher because he's just fabulous. I don't know. I also have like Kilpatrick, that's my girl. I wish we could have a door where I can just like go through the wall to see her next door. And I thank her for all of her support because I could not be here if she didn't hold me down because sometimes I want to flee. But her support as a friend and a teacher, she has always been there. She's so knowledgeable. And if I have a thought, like she can be like, okay, well, let's think about it this way. And just having that person that you can talk to with no judgment. So
we got a 2 for 1. So we got a shout out to Mr. Ellis and we got a shout out to Miss Kilpatrick. So if you're hopefully listening to this podcast, I just want to let you know that you are valued, you are appreciated, and thank you for what you do because you make her day. But hey, Krisstian, thank you so much for spending some time sitting down and talking with me just about life and about education and the impact that we can have on kids. So I, again, thank you for being on this episode of Keeping Up with the Knights.
No problem.
All right. Have a good day and we'll see you soon.
All righty. Bye.
All right, bye-bye. Thank you for listening to Keeping Up with the Knights. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure you subscribe and click the notification button so you know when the next episode is released, and then share it with your friends and colleagues. If you're so inclined to do so, would you please rate and review this podcast to help me grow our community of listeners? I hope there was something that you heard today that allowed you to connect outside the classroom. Now, more than ever, we need each other as a support system, and we need to continue to make this the best high school in the state of Texas. Thank you, Knight Nation. Now, go be someone's champion today.